Cities across California have a lot of shared problems and a group that helps them address those issues, the League of California Cities. But Orange County cities often have different ideas on how to deal with things, and so a few years back they started their own separate advocacy group, the Association of California Cities, Orange County. How's that go-it-alone approach working, and what are the biggest issues facing cities here? I'll ask the head of the association, Heather Stratman, right now on Inside OC. Inside OC is brought to you by...
Each new community 5 Point brings to life represents a promise delivered. Great neighborhoods are more than just places to live, they are places to connect. 5 Point is a proud sponsor of public television and community programming.
Chapman University is a proud sponsor of Inside OC and community programming.
Problem is settling gave them very limited options that people, may not be enthusiastic about.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Rick Reiff, and I'm talking with Heather Stratman. Well, Heather, thanks for coming on. So tell us a little bit about this group. First of all, the initials, ACC-OC, the Association of California Cities, Orange County. What do you do?
The Association of California Cities represents the cities of Orange County on regional public policy issues. We focus on 3 pillars. Education. We feel that our members, which are the cities of Orange County that make up the elected officials, 178 of them, the city staff, we owe them education that helps them make smart decisions about, policy issues.
So you're educating the officials.
That's right, yes. Yeah. The second tier of what we focus on is policy collaboration. So while it's not easy to bring multiple stakeholders to the table to deal with really tough issues, if you work through a facilitated process with that diverse stakeholder group in a collaborative nature, you usually do come up with the best product. So it sounds like you're saying you're
trying to get the cities to work together.
Not just the cities to work together, but the cities, the county, other local government entities,
all
the
those
business
agencies.
community.
So you're handling all that stuff.
It all rolls up under the umbrella.
How many cities? Orange County's got, 33?
34.
34 now. Okay, 34 cities in Orange County. How many belong to this group of yours?
28.
All right, so what 6 don't belong? I want to know, who are the 6 that don't belong?
Who are my holdouts? Brea, Cypress, Santa Ana, Seal Beach, La Palma, and Rancho Santa Margarita.
So Rancho is down there. They're the only South County. The rest, it's those ones. But now Santa Ana's a big city. It's, how come they don't belong?
The organization, when it was initially formed in 2010, there was folks who sort of felt allegiance to the league and didn't want to leave the league. And so they didn't sort of come onto the side of the association. I think today, where we are 7-8 years later, is that it's not a decision between ACC-OC or the League of California Cities. I think we provide different services, and we've been able to distinguish ourselves from that. So you keep an eye on us, but I'm hopeful that we hit that 34 mark here real soon.
You referenced the league, and I think most voters, or not most voters, most voters, but most viewers of this show have probably heard of the League of Cities. That's pretty well known. There's a California League of Cities. There's a National League of Cities. And Orange County, most of the cities of Orange County do belong to the California League. But you guys then, I think you're the only one in the whole state. Orange County is the only county that decided we want to have our own group. Now, why was that? Why did Orange County decide we want to have our own group?
It dates back to 2008 to about 2010. Then Governor Schwarzenegger and legislative leadership at that time were spearheading several pieces of controversial legislation. It was AB 32, and
which was
that was the whole greenhouse gas sort of Schwarzenegger's legacy legislation.
Okay.
And the other piece of legislation was SB 375. It was authored by then Senate Pro Tem Darrell Steinberg.
That was
it was really the state's first big push to tie housing and transportation together through land use, and really start to push cities to start to think about how do you create housing when you have these, congestion management problems and mobility problems. The State League of Cities at that time, or the State League of Cities at that time, took a support position on those bills. Orange County felt very differently about supporting.
So Orange County didn't like those initiatives,
did not like those
and
initiatives.
the League of Cities was for it.
Correct.
And
there you go.
so now, by forming your own association, though, because everybody knows Orange County is a little different than the rest of the state,
Yes.
A lot different. It's red,
Yes.
for the most part. It's red, and for the most part, the rest of California, as we know, is blue. So you form your own group. Doesn't that almost like put a big target on the back of Orange County? I mean, in other words, how can you be effective if you're lobbying in Sacramento for different things? Is it really helpful, or is it like, uh-oh, here they come, let's, shut the door?
Right. I think that's where most people go. But I think that the board of directors has charged me with problem solving. So get out of the politics, get into, we have issues that we need to fix and we need to address, and how are we going to get to where we need to be? And so we've taken a very different approach in Sacramento over the last 2 years. It's been one of relationship building across both sides of the aisle. It's strategy focused on, how can we support other cities outside of Orange County who are dealing with the same issues that we are, so that we can create relationships and build statewide coalitions. I think we're just looking at it differently, and we aren't getting the negative reaction that maybe some folks would assume that we would have in Sacramento.
All right, so give me an example of something you're doing or you've done where you've been able to make your voice heard.
In 2017, the association sponsored a piece of legislation, AB 346. We went to Assemblymember Tom Daly. He was the original author of the bill. Okay. And soon thereafter, he brought on Assemblymember Bill Breaux out of South Orange County. It was a bipartisan piece of legislation.
Tom Daly, Democrat, Breaux, Republican.
Right.
Okay. And by the way, what is this? What was this legislation?
AB 346 would allow successor agencies of redevelopment agencies to use the remaining funds that were left in their low and moderate affordable housing funds for the purposes of traditional affordable housing, in addition to emergency shelters, rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing.
Was the state going to take those funds away, or what was happening?
The dollars were almost like a stranded asset, because the property tax increment wasn't replenishing those dollars.
Oh, you're getting into the. I know this is what you do. It's just hard to follow, but that's why you do what you do. Okay,
yes.
So keep going.
There were stranded dollars there, basically, and we knew if we created flexibility in terms of how those dollars could be used, that cities would then be able to push those dollars out for the purposes of housing or
what's
shelter.
Not to like about that?
It was good. The governor signed the bill in June of 2017, and it became effective January 1st of this year.
Did it help other cities too?
It's a statewide. It's statewide.
Why? And you guys thought of that?
And we thought of it. And actually, it came out of the city of La Habra, so I have to give them a lot of credit for that.
Okay. And also, you were speaking a little bit about how you're trying to be a little more ecumenical and get because I think originally this was seen pretty much like a Republican. It was a Republican association, and the cities that were dominated by the Democrats or were controlled by Democrats didn't belong. St. Anna, Irvine didn't belong initially. Of course, now it's under Republican control. It does belong. But Laguna Beach, which is, I don't know if it's ever been a Republican town. It joined recently.
Yeah, they came on board this summer, and I think the push for cities who maybe, had some apprehension before is that we really are focused on these regional issues that are impacting all of our cities, and they can't figure it out one city by one city. There has to be regional solutions that create efficiencies and collaboration among the cities. So examples of that: housing, transportation, homelessness.
Well, let's get into those. And so you've just said three: housing, transportation, homelessness. So you answered my question. I was going to say, give me three big issues. So let's take homelessness. We've talked a lot about it. So tell us about that. What is, looking at the big picture, what's the problem and what are you trying to do about it?
We know that we have, thousands of people living on the streets, chronically homeless. We also know we have a huge group of people that are vulnerable to falling into homelessness, or technically, they move around, they live in motels, they couch surf. So there's a population there that we need to find shelter for. And we've really taken this housing first approach. Now, there will be critics who say that, there are many folks who are living on the street who don't want help. And I think in some cases, absolutely that is true. I don't think that everyone wants to live out on the street in an environment that isn't safe, right? So our problem is that we have a large group that's, whether they're sitting on the riverbed or in our local parks or wherever. And our cities can't necessarily use enforcement, our police officers, to, say you can't be living here, because we have nowhere to take them. We don't have adequate emergency shelter beds at this point. The county opened the Kramer site earlier in 2017. That was a huge step forward. We need more beds, but we need a variety of different types of sheltering units. It's not just emergency shelters, it's crisis stabilization units, so that our emergency rooms are not revolving doors trying to take care of folks. We need permanent supportive housing. We need transitional housing for some individuals. Everyone's case is a little bit different, so we need to diversify our sort of stock, our supply, and allow folks to get off the street.
So how does your group get involved in this, and what can you do? Because there's some cities that are, I'm sure they're saying, hey, it's not our problem. We don't. You're not going to put a big facility where we are, and then you've got, as you say, all these issues. What are you doing, and how do you, how are you getting the cities to work on this, and the county for that matter?
We're using the association as sort of this umbrella to bring in, again, these multiple and divergent and sometimes opposing stakeholder groups to have these really difficult conversations about, okay, no one wants it in their community, but we have to kind of get past the do nothing approach and start to say, okay, well, we don't want it in our communities because, we're afraid of how it's going to look, or, we're concerned about the discharge of patients into our streets, or whatever those issues are. Let's start to actually address those issues so that we can move past that and get to the point of implementation.
Has anything come out of what you've been doing so far?
So, I think, and I give a lot of credit to the County of Orange, just in early December, they started the process of purchasing a building, 265 Anita, in the city of Orange. And it's a 44,000 square foot building that will, serve as a crisis stabilization unit, but also have all the wraparound social services that we need to stabilize people and really to cut off that chain of, repeat behavior. And I think that that's a step in the right direction. I see it as a really positive collaboration between the city, the county, and all of the basically service providers who will be a part of that. So the city,
of course, now I'm thinking, well, I can see the city of Orange there is the party that's going to say, hey, why do we have to take this? Are you working so that, hey, you take this and maybe they'll take this? I mean, how does that work?
Yes, so I think that equity in terms of distributing these services and these sites across the county is important, because it isn't fair to any one community to sort of bear the brunt of it. But we also have to get creative in terms of, okay, what sites actually work within a community. I mean, we're not going to put a crisis stabilization unit in the middle of a single family residence. We know that. So we have to get creative in terms of our approach.
I'm curious, this facility you're talking about, this 44,000 square foot facility, how many people can that service at a given time?
The county's working through all of that, so I can't answer that question directly.
Roughly, I mean,
it depends.
In other words, is it a drop in the bucket is what I'm asking.
I think it could get us a quarter of the way there.
A quarter?
In terms of crisis stabilization units.
Well, that's significant.
It is significant.
That's significant, but it's a quarter. There's a lot more. All right, I want to ask you, because there's all these policy things, and really policies are what the league is concerned with and what you do. But these organizations are also ways for officials to network with each other. And you're dealing with all these public officials, many of them politically ambitious. So when you sit them down, I mean, do you feel like you're helping facilitate public servants, or are you herding cats? You know, I mean, what's
It depends on the day of the week. No, I absolutely feel like we are serving sort of our cities. Any elected official who wants to participate with us, we will serve. We feel that education component. I'm going to go back to that.
And again, it's education of public officials. We're not talking about K through 12 education.
No.
All right.
But you think, any given mayor has so many issues on their plate and is being asked to make decisions about, and get into the weeds on issues that are deep. And so if there's any opportunity to help support giving them information, data, an analysis of the ramifications of policies one way or the other, we're always going to be that resource. We want to serve that
What do you
place.
find? Because I mean, someone runs for office. They're either there because they're ambitious or because there's some cause that they got into. Suddenly they're a mayor.
Yes.
Does it hit them that, oh my gosh, I don't know the first thing about being a mayor?
I think the folks who recognize, I have a lot to learn here and reach out to people and get involved with associations like ourselves, you start to see them excel. I got an email over the holiday break from a mayor who said, it has been my interaction and my involvement with ACC-OC which is getting me to the point where I am today, which is I have confidence going into my year as mayor. And I think that says a lot about the work that we're doing to, try to support these folks as they tackle really tough stuff.
What's the biggest complaint you hear from your members?
I would say today, the county is somewhat sort of siloed. I hear a lot of complaints that the cities aren't doing their part, that the county isn't doing their part, and I think at the end of the day, we go through sort of growing pains as a county. We can go back decades and sort of see sort of milestones where we probably were facing pretty tough challenges, and at that point that we don't feel like we're working together, suddenly that spurs us into action, and we all do sort of rally around each other again. And today, I would say that's probably one of our biggest challenges.
Okay. If you polled your members on their attitude toward the California Coastal Commission, let's say you asked them to give the Coastal Commission a letter grade from A down to F, what do you think, what would the consensus be?
It would fall below a C. I would say for the cities, one of their greatest challenges with the Coastal Commission is that there doesn't seem to be a willingness to actually figure out how to make things work. It's sort of like the Coastal Commission says this is how it's going to be, and the cities have no recourse.
Right, and just so for viewers, everybody knows the Coastal Commission is the agency that's really charged with protecting our coastline and making sure California has a beautiful coastline, and that's very important in Orange County. Recently, I can think of a few things. They were certainly instrumental, and depending on how you feel about these things, for better or worse, instrumental in killing, at least for now, they had abandoned ranch development in Newport Beach. They have certainly been instrumental in frustrating anything about extending the 241 toll road to the 5, which many people in Southern County would love to see. And then just recently, Laguna Beach, again, our my town, the one we just mentioned, Laguna Beach was told it couldn't, restrict rental, these timeshares, the, vacation rental properties, because it was going to restrict people's access to the coast.
That's
I mean,
right.
that struck me as, there's nothing the Coastal Commission can't do.
Yeah, it is interesting. We're actually working on a county-wide model ordinance for short-term rentals, and we're starting with Laguna Beach because of what just happened with the Coastal Commission. We really need to sort of understand that judgment so we can understand how we can help cities deal with the regulatory environment that the Coastal Commission is pushing down on them while they're still trying to deal with zoning and their own, protection of the city.
So it's more like figuring out how to work around it. You're not going to change the Coastal Commission, are you?
It's not on the agenda this year.
Yeah. So, okay. Something else, there's been a lot that's been going on among cities and the contracting out of safety services, public safety. And in Irvine, they've been looking, although I must say everybody's been really quiet about it lately. I don't know if you're responsible for that, but in Irvine, you know, they're talking about an alternative to contracting with the fire authority. You've got a lot of cities in South County reviewing the contracts they have for police protection with the sheriff's department, and there's been alternatives like forming your own departments and stuff like that. Have you been involved in that?
Not those discussions, but really where the association stands on shared services and JPAs like police and fire is, you know, in many cases it makes the most sense. That being said,
that makes the most sense to
contract, right, and it financially.
Right.
But at the point at which you have 11 or 12 cities starting to say, you know, we want to audit this contract, and we want to look at, you know, where there might be flexibility to make changes that better serve our needs, that's something that I think definitely should be on the table. You know, if you look at the South County sort of contracts with public safety, you know, I think this idea that there could be some flexibility put in, you know, let's say in the summer the beach cities need more patrols. There's just more people. You know, could we do some shared services among those South County cities to give them more flexibility? Because the contracts themselves are going up quite substantially each year. And so, you know.
You mean the contract says we will have, you know, 2 police officers on duty at all times, and you're saying, well, why don't you maybe have one and let the other one go down to the beach or something?
Right. I mean, you know, I mean, if the city managers can kind of rally together and figure out how do we share these services so that, you know, we can absorb these escalating costs, but we get the service we need, that seems to me to be a win-win for both parties.
So you're encouraging them to look at flexibility.
Yes, absolutely.
And maybe the agencies themselves, like the sheriff, might want to do that if the heat's on.
Yeah.
Okay, now you mentioned city managers. They're a big deal. Never come on this show. They like to keep a low profile, but they are very powerful people. Do you get along with the city managers?
I do. I have a really strong relationship with the city managers group. We actually have the Orange County City Managers Association. We meet monthly, and you know, I think the city managers, you know, they're always looking for solutions, and so when we can offer them, you know, solutions that make sense, they're inclined to, you know, want to participate.
Okay. I was impressed because in one of our prior discussions, I asked you, like, what's one of the big things you're working on? The first thing you said was pensions. And public officials never want to talk about the pensions. It's politically volatile. How can you possibly make a difference in the issue of these unfunded pension liabilities, the rising cost of retirements for public workers, and the strain that they're putting on government budgets?
It's not going to be a silver bullet. So there is no silver bullet solution, and I think folks need to kind of agree on that. So let's, you know, start from the same page. It's going to be a lot of small tweaks to the system that allow stabilization. So, you know,
such as,
you know, COLA suspensions, cost of living suspensions. You know, take those dollars that are going to cost of living suspensions and pay down your unfunded liabilities, because we're entering a period where we've known the problems exist, and we've known, you know, how bad it's going to get, but we're going into a period where it truly could collapse. We know from, you know, directly from CalPERS that we're within, you know, 15 sort of percentage points of the system falling into failure and not being able to recover. So I think the time is now. We have a very short window left with this current governor, and we're going to focus on that aggressively between now and the end of the year.
Have you involved public employee unions in what you're doing?
So we're starting those discussions with them. I started that late last year, and those will continue to evolve. There is some education on everyone's part that needs to take place, which is, you know, we have a problem. We all can agree to that. But how we fix the problem is where we run into challenges. So, you know, you'll have the labor groups say, well, raise taxes, add some sales tax to the ballot, right? That's not going to win over our voters. So we have to find other solutions, and cities cannot sustain the payments that are about to, you know, unfold in the next 5 years.
Okay, well, I must say, when it comes to the public employee pension issue, I'm, you know, bravo to you for looking at it. Lots of luck in
Yes,
coming
thank
up.
you.
Although these are all tough issues. We've got 20 seconds. Just tell us to that end. We didn't, you know, we touched on a couple of things. Very, very big problems. Are you an optimist or a pessimist about dealing with these issues?
I'm the eternal optimist. It gets me in trouble. But I figure in this line of work, that's probably the best attitude to have.
Well, Heather, great to have you on. We do have an open mic segment now, so there's lots of other things we can talk about
Okay,
too, and
wonderful.
that'll be online. Well, that's it for now. Thanks again to my guest, Heather Stratman. You can watch this show and past shows by going to pbssocal.org or rickreiff.com. You can also catch our shows and our post-show open mic chatter on YouTube. And follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again on Inside OC. Inside OC is brought to you by
Each new community 5 Point brings to life represents a promise delivered. Great neighborhoods are more than just places to live, they are places to connect. 5 Point is a proud sponsor of public television and community programming.
All your life, people talk about what's best for you. But to most people, it's just that. Talk. Unless you're with Memorial Care, a healthcare system devoted to one important thing: what's best for you.